Hi guys, welcome back to part 2 of my top 10 games that ease the pain of being a Contra fan. If you guys missed out on part 1, I highly recommend you to check it out to make sure that you don't miss out on another 5 amazing Contra-like games. But right now, just like before, we have loads to discuss. So come with me and let's begin, shall we?
Number 5.
If you've ever played a good Duke Nukem game before, you know what to expect. Exhilarating gameplay and crass humor.
You guys suck.
And this game does not disappoint.
You want to fight? Fight!
I'm not gonna fight you. I'm gonna kick your ass.
Gameplay is pretty straightforward, and usually consists of exploring stages and taking out mutated baddies, all before finding a keycard to unlock the exit. Keep your eyes peeled, and you'll notice rare hidden collectibles on each level. Grab all 10 on each stage, and you'll be rewarded with a nice boost to all of your stats. The game is rather light on story compared to some of the others that we will discuss, but it's all the better for it. Now, I know everything so far sounds too simple to hold your attention, but trust me, you'd be hard-pressed to find another run-and-gun game as exhilarating as this one.
You're my hero.
I go where I please, and I please where I go.
It's all-out adrenaline-pumping action from the word go, and it never lets up. Everything is just so well designed. Enemies are tanky, but so are you. And that just means that you get to appreciate the incredible gunplay on offer as you blast through enemies with your wide arsenal of weapons, which all feel crunchy and devastating. I mean, just look at what happens when you take someone out with a pipe bomb.
That's gonna leave a mark.
There are some tricky platforming sections and puzzles to solve along the way, but because you are always finding new power-ups and weapons, as well as getting caught up in heated boss fights, becoming addicted to this game is pretty much unavoidable.
Squeal like a pig.
Now there are some minor annoyances to contend with that modern gamers will likely take issue with, such as jumping being broken if you play the game at anything higher than 30 FPS, or not being able to set a widescreen aspect ratio without tinkering in the game's config files. By far the worst offender here is the autosave system, which normally tends to save your game each time you enter a new area or go through doors. Now this doesn't sound too bad at first, but twice or thrice while playing, I ran into an issue where the game autosaved just before I got killed. And because I was near a door, this happened.
So there is life after death. Let's rock. I could do this all day. It's a good day to die. Now I'm really pissed off. Son of a bitch.
Try as I might, I had no choice but to restart the entire stage. Not exactly game-breaking, but definitely something that could be annoying for some players. But hey, for a game that came out 20 years ago, that's still this much fun to play today, it's easy to overlook these issues. Duke Nukem Manhattan Project, just like the original Contra, is an all-time classic run-and-gun game that any gamer from any generation can pick up and have a blast playing. And that's really not something you can say about many games these days.
Damn, son.
Number 4.
One would be forgiven for assuming that Valfaris is yet another conventional run-and-gun title. But scratch the surface, and you'll find that this couldn't be further from the truth. Where most games in this genre aim to prioritize fast reflexes and action-packed gameplay, Valfaris chooses to go a slightly different route. One where player choice and the consequences that come with those choices are at the forefront. We come across the first example of this when we get introduced to resurrection altars, which act as the checkpoint system here. But these altars can only be used when the player has collected resurrection idols, which are hidden collectibles scattered around levels in hard-to-reach places or at the end of perilous paths. If you manage to gather a few of these items, you'll notice that holding onto them actually increases the size of your health and mana bars. The more idols you keep, the bigger the life and energy bonus, and when they're spent to create checkpoints, the benefit is lost. Additionally, after defeating bosses, you'll find that you can sometimes also trade in these idols to gain blood metal, an even rarer resource which you can use to upgrade your weapons. You can only carry a limited amount of idols at any given time. So, you're constantly having to decide between holding onto them to gain upgraded stats or spending them to gain checkpoints. Paired with the fact that this game has immensely aggressive AI and challenging platforming sections, it's easy for players to feel like this system is a little too sadistic. But really, the game isn't unfair, it's just strict. It wants you to play tactically and to be responsible for your actions. If you skip a checkpoint to try and stock up on resurrection idols, be prepared to endure a long and difficult path ahead. If you mess up, you'll get booted all the way back to the last resurrection idol while respawning any enemies and bosses along the way. But play it too safe, and you'll have less upgrade materials, weaker weapons, and lower stats to go with it. There is no perfect way to play, and everything comes with a risk. You're rewarded for playing skillfully, while being punished for being reckless. And that's just the gameplay mechanics. Valfaris also has fantastic stage design and an amazing combat system. In terms of defense, you can simply either duck or dodge attacks, use your energy shield to block incoming fire, or if you've got really good timing, you can actually parry enemies and send their bullets flying back at them. You begin the game with a standard arsenal, but as you play and explore levels, you'll pick up a wide array of weapons, each with their own unique effects and stats, which can be upgraded if you get your hands on the materials needed to do so. Not all weapons work best for all situations, and you're not going to be able to max out every weapon you pick up, so you'll need to spend some time picking the right loadout to suit your playstyle. Whichever weapons you choose, combat feels satisfyingly destructive and brutal. If you didn't get it by now, Valfaris is one of the greatest run-and-gun games ever made. With its challenging mechanics, amazing gameplay, and death metal soundtrack, to me, this is the definition of excellent game design.
Number 3.
I have a weather forecast for you, Louie. It's gonna be bloody, bloody with a chance of body parts.
Guns, Gore and Cannoli 2 serves as a direct follow-up to the excellent original game that was released back in 2015 and features a myriad of fancy new additions that both new and returning players will appreciate. For those unfamiliar, what you've got here is prime run and gun action at its finest. Snappy controls, an engaging story, drop-dead gorgeous visuals, incredible gameplay, and voice acting that can often steal the show.
Let's make this a night to dismember.
Good one, Louis. But no can do, my friend. The Dark Dawn wants him alive. But we can straighten him out a little bit first.
The game takes place 15 years after the original, but players who missed out on Vinnie Cannoli's first adventure will be well clued in on prior events, thanks to the game doling out healthy servings of exposition early on. As good as the story and voice acting is, the belle of the ball here is undoubtedly the gameplay. So let's talk a little more about it. For the first time on this list so far, we finally have a game that allows us to have full 360-degree control, thanks to the aiming being mapped to the right analog stick. This is a massive upgrade over static aiming that it's really hard to describe. Having to sacrifice movement in order to pick out your shots in older games was often a death sentence, because it meant that you'd have less time to react to incoming fire. But now that the player can freely aim in any direction independent of their movement, you'll truly feel like an action hero in a movie, pulling off clutch shots while dodging attacks almost as well as you dodge responsibilities in real life.
Bro, like, who even gives a shite about responsibilities anymore? Like, seriously, lol.
Get the fuck out of here with that shit. I'm gonna watch Hajime no Ippo and play video games all day. And there isn't a goddamn thing you can do about it, pussy.
I can feel my parents' disappointment in me growing every single day. But maybe they are just jelly they don't have the platinum trophy for Elden Ring, you know?
Responsibility's cool, but there's more things in life.
Handle this responsibility.
Another sweet new feature is the addition of a weapon wheel, similar to games like Saints Row or GTA 5, which allows you to quickly and dynamically switch between firearms without slowing down the action. Complementing all these shiny new toys is, of course, aggressive AI. You'll rarely have a moment to stand still and need to always be on the move if you don't want to end up getting whacked by the mafia or run over by berserker enemies who will relentlessly pursue you through levels until you lay into them and put them down for good. The game also features online play and couch co-op, so you can have double the fun tearing up 1940s Europe with friends. Levels are sprawling and incredibly detailed and are a lot of fun to have skirmishes in. However, the player is given little incentive to explore them. This means that levels can strangely feel a little barren at times. The game also lacks any sense of progression, as there are no RPG elements or customization options. This might not seem like too big of a deal, but later on, when we discuss the top 2 entries, you'll see just how much of a game changer this kind of depth can really be. As pretty and as fun as Guns, Gore and Cannoli 2 is, what you see is what you get. But what we do get is so highly polished and of such a high quality that this game cannot be denied its spot near the top as one of the greatest run-and-gun games to ever grace the gaming landscape.
Number 2.
Mercenary Kings!
I'm not even sure how to begin describing this incredible game. We're talking magnificent pixel art and animation, support for up to 4-player split screen, local and regular online play, and one of the greatest progression systems ever conceived in a run-and-gun title. And that's putting it mildly. In Mercenary Kings, you take control of one of 4 heroes as they aim to overthrow a malevolent militaristic group inhabiting Mandragora Island. Gameplay will feel familiar to fans of the genre. In fact, many will swear that this game is probably closer to Metal Slug than it is to Contra. However, the deeper you get into the gameplay, you'll notice that this game not only seems to be a spiritual successor to both Contra and Metal Slug, it also borrows elements from games like Monster Hunter, Gears of War, Deus Ex, and Metal Gear Solid. You'll get introduced to the basic mechanics through a tutorial, which, admittedly, is a rarity in these types of games that are notorious for throwing players into the deep end. The first thing you'll likely notice is that this game has a reload mechanic. A well-timed reload will mean that your next clip will contain bullets that have slightly increased damage.
Punch it!
The player also has a backpack, which acts as a simple inventory system where they can store items such as medikits and different types of explosives like C4 and stun grenades.
No sweat!
These items can be equipped and used at any time and can normally be purchased, picked up from fallen enemies, or obtained through crates scattered around levels. But if you're having trouble finding them when you need them, you also have a nifty communicator, which you can use to call in supply drops of these items anytime during gameplay. After completing the tutorial, you'll be brought to a hub area, which acts as your base of operations. Here, you can decorate your safe house, access a Pokédex of sorts, unlock new character outfits, stock up on supplies, and accept missions from the commanding officer. Things will feel a little desolate at first, but as you progress, you'll sometimes get sent on special rescue missions, where you'll be able to save kidnapped NPCs who will later set up shop in your base and allow you to craft new weapons and gear, provided that you manage to earn enough cash and get your hands on the required materials to do so, which I'll talk about more in just a second. Speaking of missions, the game features a non-linear ranking system, which allows players to tackle stages in any order based on their current character's level. The more missions you complete, the more you'll progress and be promoted through these ranks. Higher ranks unlock more missions and more crafting recipes for various different items, which include things like knives, cybernetic implants that grant passive abilities, different kinds of meals that can be eaten to grant temporary buffs, and probably the star of the show, weapon upgrades. You start out with a basic pistol, but over time, you'll manage to gather materials like wood and metal that can be scrapped and salvaged into weapon parts. Your imagination is pretty much the only limiting factor here, as you can combine receivers, magazines, scopes, and barrels in any configuration you please. So, if you've ever dreamed about building a minigun revolver or a toilet rifle, you can. The crafting isn't just cosmetic either, as different parts in different combinations will affect different attributes like firing rate, range, and damage output. So experimenting is essential. You can even craft different types of ammunition, such as acidic or incendiary, to further augment your firepower. If it sounds like things are getting a little overwhelming, that's because they are, but in a good way, I promise. It's clear that the developers of this game set out to create something special. Something for fans who have waited not only for cult classics like Metal Slug and Contra to return, but also to evolve. However, they might have leaned a little too far into RPG mechanics than most casual gamers are willing to go. This was reflected in the game's mixed reception, as I imagine that most gamers saw the cutesy graphics and were expecting to just get a simple pick-up-and-play run-and-gun title that they can just blast through with friends in a single afternoon, rather than a game that features large labyrinthine levels that are easy to get lost in if you don't make regular use of your map, and progression systems that have enough depth to drown all but the most hardcore of gamers. For this reason, there might be a little too much game for most people to handle here. But for gamers who are looking for a title that pays homage to the all-time greats of the genre while allowing them to sink their teeth into a serious game for 10 to 20 hours, this game was made for you.
Number 1.
There are times in life when you get your hands on a game and you just know you are playing something that was made with the kind of passion and effort put into it, that it feels as though something like this will probably never be made ever again. And that is the case with Shadow Complex, a 2.5D side-scrolling run-and-gun Metroidvania game that even 14 years later still holds up as one of the greatest examples of how to effectively evolve the Contra formula. And it has done so arguably better than most others have managed since. The first thing you'll notice is that Shadow Complex is a game that takes its story seriously. You play as Jason, a spelunker who goes out adventuring with his waifu Claire.
It's a good thing you got those baby blues, cutie.
While exploring a seemingly innocuous cave, they happen upon a labyrinthian paramilitary base nestled deep within. The two become separated, and Claire is captured.
Told you. I'm Claire Duncan, an anthropology student. I don't. Ow! I swear I'm not.
Oh no, Claire.
What started out as an innocent backpacking trip quickly turns into an over-the-top, pulse-pounding thrill ride involving the type of shady government conspiracies you'd expect to find in a Hollywood action blockbuster film.
At least the vice president is safe.
You mean that Vice President of the United States? Not really.
Damn it!
Married with Metroidvania stage design and Contra-esque gunplay. And that's just me giving you the Cliff Notes version of what this game is about. Core gameplay features intricate gunplay, exploration, progression, and platforming. And many of these aspects feature an element of dynamicism rarely if ever seen in side-scrollers. Players can walk, run, sneak, swim, wall jump, and make use of jetpacks to get around levels. But the game takes things further by adding secret paths in places that are hidden behind locked doors or covered under the veil of darkness. This means that certain sections are a lot larger than they first appear, and will require players to make use of a torch to fully appreciate the scope of some of these levels. Areas locked off by doors can be opened in a number of ways. Others can simply be destroyed using bombs. And that's just the platforming. Combat features stunning, open-ended gameplay, where players are sometimes free to either utilize stealth to avoid encounters entirely, engage enemies guns blazing, or make use of takedowns that can be initiated when sneaking up on unsuspecting foes. And on rare occasions, it's even possible to use the enemy's own equipment against them. There is no wrong way to play the game, as almost any strategy you can come up with to get past the enemy is viable. For example, let's take this one section early on in the game. You're in a room with guards, and a few crates which you can use as cover. You can just start shooting up the place while popping in and out of cover to reload and avoid the enemy's attacks. Climb up the crates and sneak by the guards, avoiding them entirely, or clear them out using grenades. In this instance, using stealth takedowns isn't advisable, but finding a path up above to sneak by is. Grenades are a quick way to take the baddies out, but if not aimed carefully, can result in an electrical cable being destroyed and turning into a new hazard for the player to contend with. This is what I mean when I refer to the dynamicism of this game. In some encounters, each of these kinds of approaches has its own rates of success and risks that come with them.
You tried, and that's all that matters.
As you advance, you'll notice that the game features progression, in that you are able to increase your character's effectiveness in things like accuracy, precision, and stamina. Additionally, eagle-eyed players will be able to find rare collectibles which improve your character's auxiliary stats. These are normally spread out and hidden all around the game's insanely concatenated levels, which will often require you to make use of the map to get your bearings, even though looking at the map for too long can sometimes make your head spin, especially later on. One of the best aspects of this game for me is the control. Like most modern shooting games, aiming is dictated using the right analog stick. This means it's possible to aim while stationary and shoot in almost any direction while doing things like climbing and even swimming. Weapons sometimes also feature attachments, such as flashlights and a laser sight. These accessories can be toggled independently, which gives the player an even greater degree of precision over their shots. Newer gamers might take issue with the fact that there aren't any modern bells and whistles, such as the ability to fast travel, or that it's easy to take a wrong path and lose a ton of progress by getting one-shotted by something like a tanky RPG-wielding soldier. But overall, when you consider all of the aspects that Shadow Complex does get right, and the fact that this game started its life as a Xbox Live arcade title back in 2009, and can feel like a contemporary AAA experience at times, it's hard to deny that this game may very well have been one of, if not arguably, the greatest side-scrolling run-and-gun title in its day. With great graphics and optimization, fantastic gameplay, an engaging story, and tons of replayability, as well as melding together many genres that complement each other, in my opinion, Shadow Complex still holds up in 2023, and likely will continue to do so for many years to come.
See ya!
We finally did it, boys. We made it to the end of this top 10 list. The Contra series might have gone out with a whimper, but as you can see, it definitely left a lasting legacy. And it is my hope that I managed to show you that the classics never really die, and that there are always hidden gems out there just waiting for you to discover them. But of course, I'm a one-man team, and it's impossible for one person to play every single game out there. So, I'd appreciate it if you would be so kind as to share your top picks in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed making these videos. And if you did, leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Until then, happy gaming, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.